Okay, okay, welcome everyone to our Ordinance Committee. If I'll call this meeting to order, and if we could just rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, folks. You're smarter than the microphone. I guess I'm not tonight. There we go. So now we have our audience of citizens. Anyone wishes to speak?
Jim Norton.
Okay, I guess we'll let Jim up here. All right, come on, Jim. How you doing? Good.
My name is Jim Norton, 3060 Drive, Kensington, Connecticut. Currently chair of the Golf Commission. After speaking to Arosh and members, we would like to keep the commission as it is with 8 members. The concern was that there was not a senior member on the board. It's currently a vacancy. It just occurred previously. A little bit of history that has gone on. There was a senior member in the past, Jeff Root, and for whatever reason, another senior member did not get reappointed for that one or applied or whatever it was, it doesn't really matter. But I can say this, all people's, players, what they're looking for, thoughts, good comments are taken into account before anything is done by the commission. Mr. Richards has attended many of our meetings, and he's the first one. He'll be the first one to tell you that it's like, if we have something, we'll just call him. It doesn't matter. So everybody has a voice, and no decision is made in a bubble. It doesn't work that way. We're concerned with everybody, and from the juniors on up. That's the way, to me, it should be. Everybody's got a voice,
Sure.
and we'll just go from there. But my opinion and the opinion of the board, the commission is keep it the way it is right now. And if something needs to change later on, then we'll change it. But for right now, it's not broken. Don't, just keep going the way it's going.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Anyone else from the audience on any issue? Doesn't have to just be the golf commission. Okay, thank you. All right, so we have our next on our agenda, just our approval of minutes from our last hearing. So can we have a motion on that?
I move we accept the minutes of the January 31st meeting as presented.
Thank you. Second on that?
Second.
Thank you. Any corrections or comments on them? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, so moved. Okay. So we're on to new business, our public golf course commission. So, yes,
If I may, Mr.
yes, absolutely.
So the red line version that I sent you had the change already included in it to move the members from 8 to 9.
Right.
When the latest development can disregard that,
Okay.
keep it at 8.
Mhm.
However, we would like to recommend to you, the ordinance committee, and then to the council. There's another page attached to it with the current membership. Then also talks about the affiliation. So so that this won't happen again, we propose that you have 4 members from the men's golf club, not to exceed 4, and 1 each from the ladies club, Lady Niners, 1 non-golfer, and 1 senior. So that'll get to 8, 4 plus 4.
Okay, I see. Yeah.
All right. So
Okay.
that's the recommendation. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. I think distinguished members from the commission will agree.
I have a question. What do you do in a tie vote?
Well, it's a good question. I would say you just keep going at it like the Board of Finance.
You know, I don't like commissions with even numbers. I really would prefer
I know.
a
So
high number or an odd number, excuse
give
me.
you a little history why we are at 8. We were at 7. And some time ago, the same thing happened. The senior member not being part of the group, and the council added 1 position to make it 8. So you were 7 to begin with.
Yeah.
So unless you want to go back to 7, I would not recommend going to 9. It's a small commission, adding more people will be problematic. But again, this will force, just like the Board of Finance, for the commission members to compromise and come to an agreement. You do that with the Board of Finance. 6 members there, you keep voting until you come to an agreement.
Okay.
Actually, that's good in a way, because this way a majority won't just overrule the others. And to echo what Mr. Norton said, they are in general unanimous in their voting, because we try to come to some kind of consensus agreement based on what's best for all the golfers.
Yeah, that's good. They've worked it out amongst themselves. That's always the best way. Appreciate that. Hello. Oh, I like it. Oh, cool.
I think you're getting, this is Jennifer Capola. I think you're getting feedback. Okay, she did mute herself. Yeah, because I think Donna's on a couple different, got on a couple different ways, so.
If you're on more than one device, please mute yourself. Thank you.
Hello? Oh, good.
Sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay. That's all right.
The reason I was unable to, my video wasn't working and I didn't want to not be present. My apologies. So
No,
I'm
that's fine.
on instead. Sorry about that.
No, no problem, Don. No problem. Where's your son? Come on. Put him back in the picture. Come on, let's go. That's fine. Yeah. We've all been there. We get it.
Yeah.
So it's okay. Yeah. Okay, so now where are we at? So we're gonna add that. Are we adding that into the ordinance
So
or no?
this is a recommendation from the Ordinance Committee to the council.
Yeah.
So what I would propose is I'll clean this up,
Okay,
keep it at 8.
Yeah.
But the language would read men's club not to exceed 4 and 1 each from the ladies club, lady niners, I'm sorry, 1 non-golf and 1 senior.
okay.
So that's 4 and 4.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not to exceed.
Not to exceed, yeah, go ahead.
Is that proportional to the membership? Like, how many from the ladies club we're gonna have? One?
Mr. Norton can answer the question, but the highest membership is in the men's.
So
club.
if we're gonna have at least one from the ladies club, are there 4 times as many men golfers is my question. Is it relatively proportional? Okay, so I just want to keep it, you know. Yeah, okay, so it'd be proportional representation. That's good.
Only because we need to get it on record. Hate to do this, Neil.
They are proportional. I
Yeah.
understand that, but truthfully, the last thing we want to do is start cutting things out, because then you're gonna say, well, what about the junior golfers? And next thing you know, we'll have more people on our board than you guys have up here. And I know we're important, but not that important. You know, it's,
I just wanted some kind of relative idea, you know, and it seems fair the way I have it. Thank you.
everybody has a voice.
Okay. Thanks.
That work for you, Peter?
We good?
Sure.
Huh?
I'm easy.
All
Sure.
right.
I'm gonna vote against it.
Everybody good? We're all good?
Yeah.
Donna, we good with that?
Is,
Okay, yes.
question, is there place on the application, because I haven't seen one in a while, where they can indicate, for example, when it comes up for someone on the commission next time, so we'll know what the makeup of is the commission, and as we get applications for people to be appointed, well, how am I gonna know, okay, it's John Smith, how do I know if he's part of the men's club or
Right.
the seniors or a non-golf?
So hopefully we can,
So Kate and I talked about that for the
Yeah.
golf commission. We would have a line in there so that they can write the affiliation.
okay,
It's not there in other, it's only the party that we asked for.
Yeah.
But in this case, we would ask the affiliation. This way, when you get the So for example, at the next council meeting, not today, the next one, we would have the two applications, and I believe there's a recommendation from the commission as to who you should pick, because,
Oh, gotcha. To keep with we'll keep with our,
yeah, so that
representation.
you
Yeah.
would now have one senior member.
Yeah.
Included.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, okay, good. All right. Yeah, well, yeah, so we don't appoint, somebody and then it's too late, or we have to go back and, all right, so we're good with this? We're all good? Everybody's happy? That can't be. That can't be.
Happy.
For the time being. No, for the time being. No, we're good. We're good. Okay, good. All right,
that's the.
that's that. Okay, good.
Item.
Yeah, happy we worked that out. Thank you guys for working it out. Appreciate it. Okay, so on to old business, which is our off-road vehicle ordinance.
So you have a memo from Corporation Counsel, Jennifer
Yes.
Capola, based on the conversations we have had in the past and what took place at the last meeting.
Mhm.
She's put a memo with some recommendations.
Yes,
Perhaps might be helpful. I hope you had a chance to go through it and read it.
I'll look through it.
But Jennifer, may I ask you to just hit the highlights there? For the
Sure.
options you're recommending?
Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, good evening, everybody. So I just want to emphasize that this is a starting point. We've had a number of meetings where we've discussed this topic at this point, and I know that the ordinance committee is ready to get into the substance of it and make some decisions. These are just some potential suggestions about direction you can go. And based upon, I listened to the recording of your last meeting, obviously before I drafted what's contained in the memorandum. And I did do a red line of the ordinance. You can look at it that way too, and I'll share that in a moment. But understand that, I'm interested in hearing your feedback. And I mentioned in the memo a little bit about why I made the choices I did as far as the language that you're seeing proposed here. So Arosh, I'm assuming I can screen share.
Screen share something that you have already shared. Don't put something new.
Well, it's
Gonna get
just
into trouble.
it's just the language contained within the regulation itself.
That's on here, right? Is that on here? No, that's new. Is that new?
So we could look at it in the memo too. The only other thing and I'll address this up front because it's right in front of me. I don't know if you can actually see
We
this.
can't see it, Jen.
But
Sorry.
in terms of the issue with regard to both fumes and dust, I thought a lot about, how do we quantify that? Because obviously that's a big issue when you're talking about trying to enforce against the generation of it. So my thought was just to add a statement, and I'll go back to the memo in a sec, but just add a statement at the beginning in your policy section that in addition to the noise emitted from off-road vehicles, an excessive amount of dust and fumes may be released into the air by the use of off-road vehicles, which may likewise present a significant threat to health, welfare, and quality of life of residents, including their enjoyment of their property. So just an acknowledgement of the fact that we're not just concerned about the noise. I mean, obviously that was the impetus behind the passage of this ordinance at the time that it was passed and it was updated. But, we do recognize too that there may be obviously excessive dust and fumes that are generated depending on how these vehicles are being utilized, and that may again present a problem for residents in terms of their health. I mean, you heard testimony from a couple of folks in public comment that that they suffer from asthma and so forth, and that's a big concern for them, is the generation of the dust and fumes. So I thought, let's acknowledge it, because to quantify it on enforcement, I don't really know how you do that, because it would be so subjective, but at least we want to identify it as another reason why enforcement of the ordinance and just the existence of the ordinance is so important. So I'll stop screen sharing that, and we could just go through the memo. In terms of, we spent quite a bit of time talking about the operational restrictions, and this is section 17-124. So, you're after your policy statement, you've got your definitions included in the definitions before we get to 124, which is at 17-121. I just want to note that it does in fact include snowmobiles, and it references, to state statute 14-379 for snowmobiles for all-terrain vehicles, motorcycles, motorized dirt bikes, motorized go-karts, and any other motorized vehicle registered or unregistered, which is being used for off-road recreational purposes. So that's not a definition that needs to be revised in any way, in my opinion. And then you've got 17-122 is the prohibition on town-owned property. And then 17-123 is vehicle registration and written landowner permission, which, as you saw from the other sample ordinances that I gave you, the other examples that I gave you, that's a big piece of this. State statute focuses on, does the person who's operating have the permission to operate from the landowner. So, and then we get to operational restrictions, again, 17-124. And subsection A, proximity to adjoining land, currently states no person shall operate an ORV less than 25 feet from the adjoining property line unless such person owns the abutting property or has written permission for the owner of such abutting property, which written permission must be with the operator at all times. So, I listened very closely to what the discussion was with regard to this. And, as part of that discussion, and the lieutenant mentioned this in the last meeting, was the enforcement concern of being able to measure from the adjoining property line. I don't really see that as an issue, because obviously we have the GIS, so we have some sense, in terms of being able to review the records that we have available from, the town standpoint. We do have access to information that would be able to identify that property line. And as far as the 25 feet is concerned, and I mentioned this last time, but the setbacks have to be considered. And that was a reason why I had invited Ms. Giusti to the last meeting, just so that she could hear the discussion. She and I had a subsequent discussion. She did read this memo, so I could have her input. And look, I think that if you're going to make the decision where you don't think that these vehicles should be used on properties that are of a certain acreage, say, you think potentially that people should have a 2-acre piece or more, and this is just something I'm throwing out, but a 2-acre piece or more of property in order to engage in the use of these vehicles on their private property, then that's the change we should make. Because when you get into, from a noise standpoint, 25 feet or 50 feet, and even from, I think, the emission of fumes, the emission of dust, I don't really think it makes a whole heck of a lot of difference. Maureen and I also talked about, well, what about, requiring a buffer to be put in? And, that's getting, and I throw that out for you to consider. Is that getting to be a bit too much in terms of a requirement? And what would that be? And, would it necessarily, again, the idea of it actually serving the purpose of buffering the noise, and the other concerns, we just don't know that would actually, be of benefit. So, again, like you to have a discussion, to this extent that you would like, and offer any additional feedback, changes can be made. Now, with regard to the hours of operation, and this is in that second paragraph under section 17-124 in my memo, we talked a great deal about, limitations on the hours of operation. As Arosh pointed out last time, if you review the examples that were given to you, Berlin's hours of operation are, if not more strict, they're at least as strict as other ordinances that are out there. But, really early on, the chief complaint of residents was the interference with the quiet enjoyment of the outdoor use of their property. And, meal times, of course, were referenced. And so I think if you wanted to encourage ORVs only to be operated during, for example, late morning to late afternoon hours, so it wouldn't be interfering with people's sleep in their early morning, potentially, if they're sleeping in or something like that. And then the dinner time hour, you may want to further restrict those hours. And I proposed, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. and then make it all days of the week. What you currently have is 8 again, to revisit, 8 a.m. To 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and then you have 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Sunday. I don't really like personally, because I know it becomes hard for people to remember, okay, we're doing different things, different days of the week. And I do think that that's problematic, because, we want people to remember what the obligation is. So making it uniform, I think, for 7 days a week, I think makes a lot of sense. And then again, you're talking about, 10 a.m. If somebody's sleeping in on the weekend or something like that, that gives them, that peace and quiet in the morning. And then 4 p.m. at least allows them, in the nicer weather, to be able to enjoy a dinner outside without the interruption of the noise, the dust, the fumes. And then there was also a discussion regarding limiting the duration of use at any one time during the day. So, one thought is, to me, and this is not a legal opinion, it's a personal opinion, but limiting the duration of use to a total of 3 hours per day, I think is more than reasonable. So I did propose that. Do you want to stop at this point and just have a discussion about those couple of matters before we move on to the noise restriction section?
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah. So the first one, though, so the setbacks, you don't, the distance there, what, you don't think we should do anything with that? Is that?
You're on mute, Jennifer.
Oh.
Sorry.
We were really of the opinion that moving it from 25 to 50 feet, we don't necessarily think that that's going to get you what you're looking to do. That it's going to bring you to that point where it's really going to make a difference. I know one of the properties we've talked about, it is a very large property. So, it's more than 2 acres in size. And let's not forget that you have another separation distance of the 250 feet from any residential dwelling, which is contained in your hours of operation provision at subsection C. if you increase it, it is likely that it is again, that it's gonna have the effect of causing properties of a certain acreage not to be able to have this activity occurring on site. But isn't the better route to go is if you think that, you know, you need to have a larger acreage property or something like that, then do the acreage requirement, okay? And then also increase the distance. So I would do both together rather than just the one, because going from 25 to 50, I don't think it's gonna get you anything doing that.
Do we currently have, excuse my ignorance, but does the ordinance currently have any acreage restriction for people who are riding off-road vehicles on their property? Is there any type of parameters right now that has to do with the size of the property?
No, there is no acreage requirement.
Right. I mean, obviously, the focus here is on the noise and protecting citizens from noise pollution. On the other hand, we also have residents in the town, not that I would necessarily be the first person to speak on their behalf, but we have residents in town who enjoy this particular type of recreation. So how do we balance the needs of those folks who, though, may be violating, noise pollution, norms, with also making sure that we're creating an ordinance that allows for other residents to be able to enjoy the outdoors, and their property. So, I mean, I think if we're going to add time restrictions, we're limiting the time, and then we're talking about limiting 3 hours. Now we're talking about only people with 2 acres of land. And, I'm just speaking on behalf, because I think if we don't have a balanced approach to this, then we're going to have people coming forward. The other side of this argument, we might see them a year from now asking for a change to the ordinance again, based on their, what they may see as a violation of their desire to use the property the way that they see fit. So I'm just, wondering what other people think about that in terms of how do we protect the rights of some and then the rights of others as well.
I mean, yeah, Donna, no, that's a good point. I mean, we definitely need to try and be fair to everyone, as fair as we can be, certainly, and the folks that have property and want to ride their vehicles on it. We certainly have to, have a balanced effect here for everyone, but which is the difficult part. That's the hardest part, really, with all of this. Yeah. Yeah.
One question and I guess one comment. If we were to do something where we were going to limit usage to a certain acreage of private property, those people who have been living in town already, who have been able to use ATVs on a property that will be smaller than potentially what we're going to propose, is there a way we can grandfather that in? Because then I can see, potential issues there saying, well, I bought it last month and it was fine. Now I have a $10,000 machine I can't use. So I don't know if we have the opportunity to do something with grandfathering in. And then the other concern I have is when we say 3 hours total per day, I'm concerned we're going to get into the he said, she said. Well, you started at 10. No, I started at 1. You just didn't pay attention. So I'm concerned about how to do that. Or, there's 3 kids in the house. Well, no, he was on from 10 to 1. So now I'm on from 1 to 4, or, and someone else is on from 12 to 3. I just don't know how that portion can be enforced. And again, discussion on that, but that's just my concern. Having the police show up and say, how do you prove it? Because not all the machines have hour monitors on them. It'll give you a total hours used, but it's not going to tell you how much it was used that particular day.
Guess the neighbors have the phone video, which everyone is on video today. So I mean, if you did video them at 10 in the morning riding, and I guess at 4 o'clock they're still riding, I suppose.
But yeah,
Yeah, unfortunately, it'd be on the adjoining neighbor to provide that proof to the police, I guess. But Yeah, no, it's difficult. Yeah.
At some point, common sense has to kick in and
Yeah.
community officer, if he
Yeah.
stops by and say, hey, guys, you've been riding since 10 o'clock this morning, that's enough, you're limited to 4 hours and
Yeah.
you're not gonna prove to the minute for each person, but there is some legal limit that an officer or a neighbor can mention, say, these are the rules. And of course, people are gonna violate it and there may be 15 minutes or, but I don't think it'll be this continuous day in, day out abuse. I think it could definitely be throttled back to protect the neighbors. And like you say, folks have had these for years. I don't think we can stop them. They're right from using their property. The intent of the whole thing is to stop them from harming their neighbors. I think
Right.
that's all anybody wants is the distance, 50 feet would be better than 25, but is that unrealistic? I don't know. But the part that says operation, I think somewhere I read in a fashion that causes a nuisance, and that's going to be a judgment call on the officer or the neighbor or whoever, but at least there's something to point to.
And then I don't know, in thinking about this as well, the only other portion I'm thinking of is if there are some businesses in town. Now, if this is just strictly on private property, that's different. But if someone has a business in town and maybe they're using that equipment to move things amongst their business, maybe they have an ATV that they use to plow their lot or something, and they might have to start plowing at 6 a.m. if they're going to open their business at 9.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I thought there was an
You know,
exception to
that's what I'm
the
just
lawn
wondering.
equipment or.
I've
Right.
read so many different things.
Isn't there an
that-
exception to
yeah.
recreational
there-
use, right?
There are the exclusions and exceptions in 17-126. We can amend those slightly to address, I think, a
Right,
little
there you
more
go.
clearly. I mean, F is businesses that provide ORVs and a place to ride and to the public on commercial property and are authorized to do so by all municipal and state agencies having jurisdiction over the property and activity in question. So it's not what you're speaking about, Councilwoman, but there are the other exceptions as well, with regard to, for example, we talked about farming equipment last time, vehicles used for mowing, lawn maintenance and other yard work, et cetera. So we would add to that section, I think, if you wanted to include something for a business that's using that type of vehicle, again, in the business itself, the commercial business itself or industrial
Okay.
business.
Yeah, okay.
Section F talks about the businesses that provide ORV, off-road vehicles.
And there-
It's never been an issue with businesses.
Here again, somebody earning their living isn't gonna go back and forth for 8 hours.
But it's on commercial property.
I just want to make sure that was covered. I've read so many different sections, I couldn't remember which was ours or not, so.
Sure.
All right, anything else, Peter? No, all right, so
Okay.
let's just go, we'll
So
go
then
on to the noise.
Yeah, so going on to the noise restrictions, not proposing to change anything about what is there. I think that you should leave and we talked about the decibel levels, but there's reason to leave it. And look, there are sound metering devices available in other neighboring communities that I'm sure could be explained, the proper use of them. And I don't suggest that you change that. I do think it's something that is necessary. I had mentioned to you early on, sometimes we have things that cause, prominent discrete tones that may not be the most obvious of offensive things. And I think, these types of decibel noise ordinance matters or provisions are fully necessary. I don't suggest that you change anything about that, but I did propose, and this is on page 2 of the memo at the top, that you add a new subsection C. So just leave that paragraph at the end because continues to talk about mufflers as part of B, but then add that no person shall operate or cause to be operated any off-road vehicle which is modified, altered, broken, or in disrepair, so as to emit excessive, unreasonably loud, or offensive levels of noise. Because there could be circumstances where there's other things being modified besides the muffler itself, that could cause noise. And then obviously if something is broken or in disrepair, there could be an issue as well with emission of noise. So I suggest that you do add that to kind of come full circle on that. On 17-127, let's jump to that in the whole anonymous complaint discussion. So what's proposed, let's talk about the second sentence first, which was a source of some concern. It currently reads, with respect to privately owned land, no police officer shall initiate an investigation or attempt to enforce or issue a summons to enforce this article except upon complaint. And you heard from the lieutenant the perspective on that. I have proposed an amendment to read as follows, so it would replace that sentence. Upon receipt of a complaint or upon observation of a possible violation of this article by the police department or other department of the town, because you always want them to be able to, if they see a potential violation, to be able to enforce. So I propose including that clause there. And then it goes on, the police department shall initiate an investigation, and if it is determined that a violation exists, it shall attempt to enforce or issue a summons to enforce this article. So we have obviously, again, attempt to enforce that is in the original language. So that way, if it's an initial first warning, you want them to just be able to say, just to make you aware, you're engaged in this activity. It is a violation of the ordinance. This is the first time that we know of that, this has been an issue. We're just going to warn you. So we have that language in there, or to issue a summons, again, to enforce this article. And then as far as an
Hey, Rich,
anonymous
let me-
complaint,
let
I'm
me-
sorry,
let me-
whoever Larry Ryan is, please mute your iPad. And then any anonymous complaint received shall be independently verified. And you heard what the lieutenant said about that. We want, if they're going to take in an anonymous complaint, it's not prohibiting them from doing it, but it has to be that if they're going to enforce upon that anonymous complaint, that they're able to independently verify. Again, whoever Larry Ryan is, please mute your iPad because we're picking up your voice.
Do you hear anything now? I think it's quiet.
No. So that's what I did with that language. So thoughts on that? Thank you.
Yeah, that makes sense, Jennifer, I believe, as to what we were discussing. Obviously, we were concerned with it had to be a public complaint. I don't think that's always necessary. So this does seem to cover that part. Obviously, if people want to report things to the police department anonymously, they should be able to do that. And within reason, the police department, depending upon resources and how the complaint comes to them, should be able to go out and take a drive-by and see for themselves. So what I think. What do you guys?
I like that amendment.
What do we think, Donna? What are you thinking? Make sense?
I'm thinking, the thing I'm on is the warning. I think that's fair. I think we need to have some type of warning for the individual first and,
Sure.
the ability to correct themselves without placing, too much burden on the police to have to immediately take some action beyond the warning as
Yeah,
well.
no, I agree. I mean, all of this, hopefully, well, I don't know about our world today, but all of this should be, reasonable for everyone. And, but you're okay with the anonymous part, if it's anonymous complaint. That's the part that
Gotcha.
is difficult for the, to get around in our current ordinance.
Right, right, right. Yeah, I think that's fine.
Okay, we good with that part? So, all right, well, okay, go ahead, Jennifer.
Okay, and then this last section, everyone seemed to have kind of a favorable reaction, I'll say, to the nuisance provisions and some of the other examples that you looked at. So what we're proposing here, as far as changing this section, it'll still say relation to nuisance and other laws, but you'll have a subsection A, which will address public nuisance. So no person shall operate or cause to be operated any off-road vehicle upon any public private property, any private residential property, or any private non-residential property within the town of Berlin in any manner which would cause nuisance, annoyance, alarm, or harassment of any kind to any person. I did add there, racing of an off-road vehicle or vehicles shall be considered a public nuisance per se, because I wanted to give you an example of an activity that could be engaged with these vehicles, which you might consider to be a per se nuisance. Okay. So that was just, and I think I gave you, and I'm not remembering what town had it. There was one town that did have a racing ordinance. But I wanted you to have some discussion about that. Are there certain activities that folks could be engaged in with these vehicles that you would consider to be a public nuisance per se, that you would want to have an immediate prohibition against? So I put racing in there just as a potential example of that. But then, you get into, well, what would constitute racing? So, we would probably want to define that more specifically, and so on and so forth. But I just wanted to include that. And then in terms of B, it would say private nuisance, again, distinguishing between public and private. Compliance with this article is not a bar to a claim of private nuisance or any other private cause of action by any person, meaning you could still pursue a private cause of action through the court as well, and nothing in this ordinance would prohibit that. And then we would also have the remaining language, that last sentence, in terms of its relation to other laws, that the provisions of this article shall not be construed to prevent the enforcement of other ordinances, regulations, or statutes that prescribe other standards for the type of noise or conduct involved. So that would stay in there. But just distinguishing again between public and private nuisance issues, and having that as an additional means of enforcement. And again, that language is, the operation of any off-road vehicle in any manner which would cause nuisance, annoyance, alarm, or harassment.
That all seems pretty reasonable to me to strengthen it. What do you guys, what are we thinking?
I think it's pretty good. Maybe just a thought, instead of racing, we could say be operated in a dangerous manner or a manner that might cause harm to others.
You could
And would that be,
add that.
because if somebody's pulling a wheelie and driving crazy, that's just as bad as racing.
True.
Mhm.
There's some way to
Yeah,
word
that's
that.
a good point. But what do you think, Jennifer? Does that make sense to maybe?
So I think that that's an excellent example. The wheelies that I know I've seen that happen myself, even on the highway. I've seen some of these vehicles on the highway and the past couple of years in particular, and yeah, the wheelies on the highway are really a big concern too. So yeah, so I'll craft some revision to that proposal.
Okay, good. So that's great. I think we got some good additions to the ordinance, which would help, many situations in town, on every aspect of it. So maybe what we all kind of agreed to tonight, give you a little bit of different language on a couple things. Maybe you can bring that back in the ordinance with the red lined additions to it next time. And
Okay.
we'll just have one more shot at it. And if folks, want to talk at that meeting, yes,
We have a quick audience of citizens to get to.
yeah, you can, come on up. Yeah, I was gonna ask that before we adjourned, yeah.
Good evening. My name is Roman Borshuk, 121 Devonshire Way. Your Honor,
Hi, Roman. How are you?
distinguished members of the Ordinance Committee. Again, we want to thank you for taking the time. I know this has been probably not your number one priority in the scheme of things and everything that's going on in the town.
Hmm.
You know that.
It's all important to us.
It
It is.
And
Yes, it
one
is.
thing we need to mention is that this isn't just for us.
Yeah,
okay?
I know that.
This is our neighborhood is not the only one impacted.
No, we get that.
I know.
no.
The other thing is,
Yeah.
I get really nervous anytime I hear acreage restrictions, because I'm an ATV user.
Yeah.
The older I'm getting,
Yeah.
I need it to use in my garden.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
not gonna
there you
plow snow because I can pay somebody to do that.
Yeah.
But there was some
Yeah.
comparisons made between the use of machinery
Right.
and ATVs. I have film that have you shared the film with the members of the committee?
Mm-hmm.
And, okay, so recreational use and nuisance is completely different than having somebody cut your grass
Right.
for an hour. I have 3 mowers running simultaneously.
Yeah.
And they're quiet because the noise is regulated.
Sure.
As an ATV enthusiast and subject matter expert on that, I can tell you that the ATVs in question are not stock.
No,
And
okay.
secondly, I'd like to say that is there's been a lot of discussion about ATV use. And the assumption is one vehicle is being used at the same time. We would like restrictions on the number of vehicles being used because the decibel level is compounded.
Mm.
Multiple vehicles are used. So is the exhaust.
Sure.
So
Sure.
we would like to see restrictions on the number. We would like to limit it to 1. The fact that the usage is 12 hours a day, operating 25 feet from my property line is absurd. So that means during the daylight of the summer, 8 to 8, 12 hours a day, we have
Oh,
to
yeah,
listen to
that-
that randomly.
Yeah,
And again, I didn't move here to police my neighbors and I want to live in a harmonious,
yeah.
no, I don't want to be calling in, the
Right.
police, especially our police who's, already overextended in many regards. They don't, I'm sure when this ordinance was passed, things were a lot different and maybe they had the time to address these things.
Right.
I don't want our police officers working on these things. I don't want to call them personally. Somebody else may not feel that way.
Yeah,
Myself as a neighbor, I don't want to be in that situation. So I think you really have to really ask yourself, do we want our police force addressing these issues? Do we want them taking the time? You have an ordinance essentially that can't be enforced. Not only that, what's the fine? Is there a downside to this? What happens? So let's say I ride my ATV all day long. I'm racing with my friends. I have 5 ATVs in the lot and a police officer shows up and says something to me. What are the ramifications of that? Stop doing it?
Do you have a
Please.
specific recommendation that you would
Is-
like to make?
is-
Because we looked at multiple options. I would like to
Yes,
hear
I
from
mean,
you.
at this time, I think again, limit the amount of hours per day. I'm sorry. 12 hours a day is ridiculous. It's absurd. I don't know.
that's what one of our recommendations is
Definitely.
that we cut it to 6 or 8, maybe,
No,
maybe.
The amount of
3
vehicles that can be
3
used.
hours per day. 3
What is it?
hours per day total. And then the time frame during which they
Oh,
can
right, it was 3
operate,
hours.
I
Yeah, it was 3 hours a
proposed
day
from
total.
10
So,
to
What
4.
are the hours? So just
10 to 6,
Ten-
10 AM to
10
6 PM, but
10
only
10
3
to
hours.
4.
Into 4.
10 to 4, I'm sorry, 10 to 4,
okay,
10 to
so
4, I'm
that's
sorry.
4 hours. Right, 10 to 4.
Well, 10 to 4, 10 to 4, but they can only use the 3 hours within those.
So again, I don't want to
Yes.
be policing that. I don't,
Yeah, no, I know, it's hard to do that.
I don't want to be doing that. I
We-
don't
we
want to be
don't-
out there with a camera. I got
Yeah.
too much stuff I'm busy. I got
Yeah.
stuff to do too.
We don't want to make it so overboard, you know.
And I want to
onerous
operate my
that-
vehicle as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously, this is a situation where I think it's, it's very difficult to enforce it. I believe that there's been more time defending this ordinance than there was put into actually passing it, quite frankly. And now we're in a situation where, I mean, I know other townspeople, residents are going to be impacted by this.
Hmm.
We have other options, but I mean, other residents are going to be impacted by this. And quite frankly, now, it's to the point where I don't want it to impact me, my usage, but I use it again responsibly and in a fashion that is not a nuisance or harassing my neighbors.
So let me ask you, since you use it, you do it
Mhm.
yourself, 3 hours a day? Is that a reasonable amount of time?
Sure. Okay, one vehicle at a time.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, I know you said
Okay,
that. Yeah,
multiple
yeah.
vehicles, again, compounds the noise.
And 10 to 4 during the day?
Well, I mean, again, is that Sundays also?
I think we
It's
left it at.
7 days a
7
week,
Days a
7
week.
days a week
And not 8
proposed.
days a week. I mean, geez,
It's
I mean, come on, all
a
right?
song, I think.
It is. I can sing it
Uh,
for you.
yeah,
Very well,
yeah, no,
actually.
I mean, that's just what we're thinking now,
Okay,
but
so
that's
okay,
why we
I
want,
think Sunday should be, I
that's
think
why we want your
a day of
input.
peace.
Yeah.
I think a day of peace and,
all right.
I mean, that's just my opinion.
Yeah,
don't know.
no, I get
I
it.
mean, but then again, if I have to ride my ATV, I'm not gonna create a nuisance.
No, I know. Well, again, we hope everybody is for responsible use, right? For everyone, that's what we hope for.
Right.
Unfortunately, that's what ordinances are for and laws are for. People are not responsible, but
And I believe 10 years ago, when this ordinance was passed, the prior committee evaluated everything. The original number from the property line was 250 feet. I don't know whether a zero fell off in the process or whatever, but 25 feet is not acceptable, especially if somebody has 12 acres.
yeah. Well, that's
Okay.
something I think
It's-
we need to think about.
Well,
a
it
little bit,
says 250 feet
From the
from
house.
any residential dwelling.
from the
So
resident.
it is
Okay.
in there, but not from the property line. The property line, it says 25.
So that means that if I'm sitting on my patio, say, then let's say it's 60 feet from the property line. So that's 85 feet from the actual vehicle. So,
No, they need to be 250 feet away
Yeah.
from your deck.
okay, well, that's not, okay, then right now, this is way out of line and it's
Then
not being
this
enforced. But
would
then
cover
again,
it.
I don't want to be, I don't want to be in a situation where I'm that's not what, I don't want
No,
to, I
no,
want to
I
be a
get
good neighbor and,
Yeah, we get it. No, we get it.
all right.
We appreciate,
Anything else? Do you have any, we already addressed that.
we,
We already
we-
addressed that. Thank you.
yeah, yeah.
Thank you very much for your time.
Oh, thank you.
And I look forward to the next meeting and hopefully we can get, advance the ball a little bit further. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, we're going to go back, right? Jennifer, you're gonna go back and add a couple little things in, maybe give us the red line version with most of the things we thought would be important. And add a few things maybe,
Sure.
and then we could
Yes.
discuss it a little bit further next time.
So
Yeah.
just to go back to the first question, because I didn't quite hear whether or not his first question had been answered. So a violation of an ordinance, you do have a schedule of fees that does in fact charge a per day essentially a citation fee. So that is part of your local laws. So I believe it is $100 a day fine.
Okay,
So I don't think that has changed to my knowledge.
Let's leave it.
yeah, okay, good. All right, so we're up against another meeting time here, so we'll go ahead and make another meeting date. What are we thinking for another date while we're here?
Capola, how much time would you need?
So we have the meeting that we're doing on March 30th. That is a 6 o'clock meeting. So
March 30th.
that is the combined meeting again for cannabis that you're gonna be doing at the high school.
Yeah,
You can't have it on the same day. Needs to be.
No,
What we shoot
'cause-
for a day in mid-March,
that's
good.
fine.
Yeah.
right?
The Ides of March.
Before the 15th for sure.
yeah.
So, are you meeting on the 14th? Is that a town council meeting
Um,
or the 7th or the
Seventh.
21st?
seventh and the
Meeting.
7th and the 21st.
Did you want to do it March 7th?
If you
Actually, I
can.
can't do March 7th. I do have a conflict. The 21st.
What would you say you couldn't do the 7th?
She
I
couldn't do it.
can't
Oh, you couldn't do it on the
do the
7th.
7th because I do have another meeting that
The
night. I have
21st, yeah,
another
okay.
town council meeting.
March 21st,
Okay.
okay.
At
Six-
6 PM.
6 o'clock?
Okay. Very
Okay,
good. Thank you so much.
all right, thank you, Jennifer, thank you, everyone. We'll go ahead and take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, so moved. All right, we're adjourned and just give us a few minutes before our council meeting. And we'll start.